We have an allusion to the foreign armies invading the country. And in describing these armies, it says they sacrifice to their standards and worship their weapons of war.
And only Roman armies from the times of Jesus onwards sacrificed to their standards, as these bore the bust of their deified emperors. Using internal data like this, Eisenman goes against the grain of the majority, a thing he sometimes seems to relish.
This guy, one Jewish scholar, he's never been out here, he said, Eisenman makes too much of the scrolls. They are as dull as the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is slate gray, dead in color. So are the scrolls. He wrote this in Commentary magazine, one of the most famous magazines in America. I wrote back and I said, obviously your writer has never been to the Dead Sea on the bluest of blue halcyon days. Nor can he understand the color of the Qumran literature.
Shafam lo voina bo im Hashem lo yishma'ir Shav shokat shoimer im Hashem lo yifne bayit Shamam lo moina bo im Hashem lo yishma'ir Shav shokat shoimer im Hashem lo yifne bayit Shafam lo voina bo im Hashem lo yishma'ir Shav shokat shoimer im Hashem lo yifne bayit.
Parallels and common themes Eisenman sees between the scrolls and the origins of Christianity are too many to reject outright.
Across the Dead Sea is where Qumran is located, and behind us is this fortress of Herodian where John the Baptist was put to death.
John the Baptist. It's hard to avoid the parallels between him and Qumran. Both are in the same area. Both emphasize various purification rituals, baptism, purification of body and spirit by immersion in water. Both berate the establishment and priests for their laxness and accommodation with the enemy.
And then he says, you generation of vipers, remember, the fire is in the fan and the chaff ready for the burn.
John prepares in the wilderness for the coming of the Messiah, just as it is written in the scrolls.
They shall separate from the habitation, separate meaning leave the polluted area of ungodly men and go out into the wilderness to prepare the way for him. As it is written, prepare in the wilderness the way of our Lord. Make a straight path in the desert for our God.
John's following is so large that he becomes a threat. The Gospels avoid the fact because it puts Jesus in the same mold. To them, John falls prey to the whims of a Herodian princess. But a Roman historian paints the true story.
Josephus presents the Herodians as fearing John because he is so popular will lead a revolution. So there is no Salome, there's none of the favorite fairy tales of the birthday party and the dance of the seven veils that has come down in Western culture and art and opera as one of the favorite motifs and themes. There is this stark preventive execution of a troublesome rabble-rouser.
The Dead Sea Scrolls don't mention specific events. They give a militant mood of the country and another understanding of the times. They make one notice contradictions in the Gospels. Beside the mild and mystic Jesus, there is another one, uncompromising with the powers that be, the cleansing of the temple.
People should realize that the so-called money changers were actually those people who sold offerings so that they could be brought by people who had brought money rather than actual animals to offer at the temple. And Jesus felt that even this was intolerable within the context of the temple. Jesus is placed by this story on the side of the strictest observance of the law in a certain sense.
A militant Jesus, more in the mold of the Dead Sea Scrolls, those not accommodating, challenging the priests and their Roman masters, What do we know about the historic Jesus? Do the Gospels get the facts about him right? Jesus entering Jerusalem on a humble white donkey.
In Jewish tradition, at least as far as we know from later sources, there was a notion that the Messiah would arrive at a white donkey. And therefore it seems that the Gospels place Jesus on this white donkey in order to symbolize that he is the Messiah, just as, by the way, they place his birth at Bethlehem, which is the birthplace of King David, whose descendants are supposed to occupy the Messianic throne.
Historians now think Jesus probably came from the north in Galilee, not from Nazareth. The place didn't even exist yet at the time. That epithet must come from the word Nazarini, meaning keeper of the law.